everybody, and happy Wednesday. For today's science lesson, we are going to learn all about the oceans, and there's so much to learn about them. Did you know that over 70% of our Earth's surface is covered by the oceans? That is most of the Earth. So we're going to start learning a lot more about the oceans today. First, we're going to read Curious George Discovers the Ocean, and then after that, we're going to watch a real-life video from underwater in the ocean. Let's go ahead and get started. Like I told you in our morning message, today we're going to be learning about the oceans. So we'll read the book, Curious George Discovers the Ocean. Curious George Discovers the Ocean. Adaptation by Bethany Freitas, based on the TV series written by Bruce Akiyama. George was a good little monkey and always very curious. Do you want to hear about a time George discovered the ocean? It's hard to believe, but the story starts in the sky. George had always dreamed of flying, so this was his lucky night. "Sorry to pick you up so late," Professor Wiseman said, "but a miniature weather satellite just crashed from space. It needs to be found right away, and I think you can help." Did you know there are satellites above Earth? They take pictures of how the clouds move. Weather scientists called meteorologists use this information to guess when storms will come. You've probably seen satellite photos on weather reports on TV or online. George and the man with the yellow hat watched from the helicopter as their house got smaller and smaller below. They passed the city, the country, and the beach. Soon they were flying over the ocean. Guess who spotted the ship first? "Yes, George, there's the Einstein Pizza research ship just ahead," the man said. Professor Einstein and Professor Pizza looked worried. They explained the situation to George. The satellite splashed down close by, but no one is sure exactly where. It might have broken in the crash. That doesn't sound good, does it? What if the information and photographs the satellite had gathered were lost? Should we help them look for it? The man asked. George couldn't wait to begin. Do you think George is going to help them look for the satellite? Yeah, it seems like he will because he couldn't wait to begin, so it sounds like he's excited to help. Did you know a research ship is a floating laboratory? Some are designed for day trips, but others are home to researchers for weeks or months. Polar research ships can even sail through frozen seas. Can you imagine being the captain of a ship that can move through ice? Where would you go if you were? If they were going to search the ocean floor for the satellite, they would need to take Pizza and Einstein's submarine. First, a helicopter, and now a sub. Today was turning into a big adventure. Did you know sub is short for submarine? Subs can travel underwater. Most subs are long and rounded on both ends, which helps them to move easily through the water. Subs can be even smaller than the one George rode in. with room for only one person to travel for a few hours. Some subs are longer than 500 feet and can stay underwater for up to 6 months. How would you pass the time on a submarine ride that lasted half of a year? What do you think George saw through the sub's windows? There were so many things to look at. Fish, plants. Okay, George, the man said. Keep your eyes peeled for that satellite. George tried to pay attention. Soon, the submarine's sonar began to beep. Had they found the satellite already? Sonar uses sound waves to see objects underwater. The sonar in George's sub sends out waves. It can find the satellite underwater by reading the way the sound bounces off objects nearby and return to the ship. That's not the satellite, George, Professor Wiseman said. Look, the sonar had found a giant sea turtle. Did you know giant sea turtles, or leatherback turtles, are the largest of all turtles? They can live for more than 50 years. Leatherbacks are found all over the world. Males never leave the ocean, but females swim up onto the beach every 2 to 3 years to lay eggs in the sand. She'll be gone by the time the baby sea turtles hatch, but they know to head for the water as soon as they climb out of their shells. Here's a mother sea turtle, and here's a baby on the beach. It wasn't long before the sonar found the real satellite. We're getting close, Professor Wiseman said. But hold on, we have a problem. The satellite is inside that coral reef. Oh no, there was only one way into the reef, through a tiny passage. The sub was much too big to fit. George was so disappointed. Did you know coral may look like plants and rocks, but it's actually made up of tiny animals? The animals are called coral polyps. Though reefs are made up of very small animals, they can be huge. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest of all, more than 14,000 miles long. The team returned to the research ship to make a new plan. If the sub was too big to get into the reef, they'd need something smaller. Do you have any ideas? How do you guys think that they can get to the satellite? Well, George had an idea. He was small enough to fit through the opening. With a scuba suit, George could swim in, explore the coral reef, and get the satellite. George's scuba suit fit just right. Your helmet contains a camera, microphone, and headphones. This locator will flash when you're close to the satellite, Professor Wiseman explained. We'll be able to see you on our monitor and speak to you the whole time. Are you ready? George was ready and excited. Did you know SCUBA stands for Self-Contained Underwater Breathing Apparatus? George's scuba suit includes an air tank, which will give him the oxygen he needs to breathe underwater. The wetsuit will keep him warm in the cold ocean. If you've ever swum underwater with your eyes open, you know George needs a mask so he can keep his eyes clear so he can see. The swim fins helped George swim fast. He swam over and around the coral reef until he spotted the opening. Did you know fish and other underwater animals don't have fins just for looks? The thin, flat shape of a fin gives more thrust or push than a small monkey foot does. As George kicks with his swim fins, the fins thrust him through the water without using much energy. Their big fins are part of the reason whales can swim for hundreds of miles without getting tired. You found the opening, George, he could hear Professor Wiseman's voice loud and clear through the speakers in his helmet. You should be able to swim right through. Once he was inside, George couldn't believe his eyes. Can you believe how many animals live inside the coral reef? Did you know coral reefs are home to some of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth? That means many different kinds of life, plants and animals, live there all together, relying on one another for food. An average reef is home to 3,500 different creatures. Think of them as the rainforests of the ocean. With so many new creatures swimming around him, George never expected to run into someone he recognized. Exploring the coral reef was so much fun that George almost forgot why he was there. Until he was distracted by a beeping sound. What could it be? What do you guys think the beeping sound is for? Yes, George is looking for the satellite. He has a watch on his wrist that senses where the satellite is. It's beeping to tell him that he's getting close. His locator, it was flashing. You're getting close to the satellite, George, Professor Wiseman said. George and his new friend swam deeper. George looked and looked. The satellite must be here somewhere. Suddenly, George noticed something strange. Shadows swirled around him on the ocean floor. Shark-shaped shadows. George was frightened. He wasn't sure if sharks and monkeys were friends. Did you know scientists have noticed female sharks swimming in circles in shallow water, just like the sharks George sees? They think that pregnant sharks might do this because the warmth of the sun helps their babies grow faster, the way some plants bloom better in direct sunlight. Reef sharks usually travel in packs of 5 to 20 sharks. Don't worry, George. Those small reef sharks aren't hungry. The coral reef supplies them with all the food they need, Professor Wiseman explained. What a relief! George was so distracted by the sharks that it took him a moment to notice what was behind him. It was right there. He had finally found the satellite. Professor Wiseman flew her helicopter over the reef and lowered a rope down to the sea floor. George grabbed on, and he and the satellite rode out of the water, up to the helicopter, and back to the research ship. George was happy that he found the satellite, but still, if it was broken, all that work and searching would be for nothing. When they got back to the ship, Einstein and Pizza checked the satellite. "It's in great shape," Professor Pizza said. "Not a scratch on it," shouted Professor Einstein. The research was saved, all thanks to George. "Ahoy, George," they called to him from the ship. They wanted to celebrate. But what do you think George was doing? It had been quite a day. George got to fly in a helicopter, and that was fun. But he decided swimming in the ocean was even better, because in the sky there are no sea turtles. And that's the end of this book. I hope you enjoyed learning about the ocean and exploring it with Curious George. Next, I'm actually going to show you a video from the ocean. So in the book, George discovers the coral reef, and that's where he finds the satellite and swims with the sea turtle. And I'm going to play you a video from the Great Barrier Reef, which is off the coast of Australia. So I'm going to show you lots of different fish and animals that live in the Great Barrier Reef. So that's coming up right next. I hope everybody enjoyed today's lesson, reading the Curious George book about discovering the ocean, and then watching the video from under the ocean at a coral reef. After today's video, I would love it if you could explore one of our virtual field trips about the ocean. There's some really cool ones. There's aquarium virtual field trips where you can see all the different animals in the aquarium. There's also a Great Barrier Reef field trip where you can see videos and information about the Great Barrier Reef. And parents, also on Netflix, there's a really great series about the ocean. It's produced by Disney and it's just called Oceans, and it's kid friendly and has great footage about all of the world's oceans. So that's another option if your student's excited to keep learning about the ocean. That's all I have for you guys today, but I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye!